Okay, so let's start off. I'm just going to mute you guys so that we can avoid coughing. So what I'm going to do today, I titled this pointer support with trackpad and mouse, but I really should have called it pointer support and peripherals, because I want to cover how iOS and iPadOS has really blossomed in the last 6-7 months, from being not a closed system, but one where the only way you could really connect and transfer data was literally through wireless, and it's become a very, very different beast all of a sudden. So let's start off. I'm going to cover connecting to both Lightning-based devices, so the non-Pro iPads, the iPad Air, and even some of the earlier Pros, which use the Lightning connector. And then we're going to move on to the iPad Pro, which has the USB-C connector. And I'm just going to show you what is available. So with an iPad Pro, or rather with an iPad with a Lightning connector, it's possible to connect any mouse. I'm going to, here I've got this is a Microsoft mouse, right? Microsoft mouse, USB, and to connect a Microsoft mouse or any USB mouse to your iPad, all you need is this. This is a Lightning camera connector. It's got USB and power on one side and Lightning on the other side. And I haven't tried one of the display adapters that have VGA and USB, but on a Lightning device, but I have tried it on the iPad Pro and they work very well. So it's quite possible that if you've got a mouse lying around and you've got the VGA or HDMI connector that also has the USB input, you might be able to connect your device to your mouse straight to your device now without purchasing anything else. So I'm going to do a bit of screen sharing over here. Okay, can you guys see my desk over there with the iPad? Quick head nod, yep, okay. And now I'm going to connect a second iPad. And for those of you who like to see what is going on behind the scenes, this is a piece of software called Reflector. And this turns your machine into a kind of little mini Apple TV. But the nice thing about it is you can see multiple devices connected simultaneously. So there we go. We've got our phone over there and the iPad over here. And I'm going to open up the camera on this guy and turn on this iPad so that you can see what's going on underneath. Right, so put you guys over here. Here we have the little camera connector. I'm going to connect that, move this out the way, to the side of the iPad. And now I'm going to take the mouse and I'm going to connect it to that connector. But before I do it, I'm going to open up the settings pane, and I want you to look roundabout over here, because the minute I connect the mouse to the connector, I'm not in the way, you should see trackpad and mouse appear. Did you see that? Right over there, trackpad and mouse. And if I move the cursor, you see I now have a cursor on my iPad. If I click on trackpad and mouse, you'll see that there's a bunch of settings that we can adjust, the scrolling speed and so on, whether it's natural scrolling and secondary click. But I'm not going to dwell too much on these because we're going to have a look at these in more detail when I connect the iPad Pro with USB-C to it. So what I did want to show though was now that I've got this USB-C camera connector kit and I've got the mouse plugged in, I can also do other things. I can connect other things to it. So I have over here just a regular external drive, right? And I also have cable length willing, you can probably see this on the other screen, a little USB-C hub, a little USB-A hub. The thing about this one, it's powered. So if I take this and I plug that into the connector kit, And now I plug the mouse into the hub, and I plug the hard drive into the hub. See, the mouse has reappeared. Let me just go to the Files app. Have a look on the left-hand side there now on the bigger screen. If I plug this guy in a second or two, I should get media. And I've now just connected my external hard drive to my regular iPad. If you've got a USB hub and it's not powered, there probably won't be enough power to drive the hard drive. And now I can do anything with this. I can open up my, what have I got here? Just loading up, speeding up. It's taking its time. But basically, I can copy files backwards and forwards from my hard drive to my iPad, from my iPad to my hard drive. I can do backups. I've literally got an external drive that is now connected to my to my iPad. So that's very, very useful. And of course, especially for demoing things like this, you can see very simply what I'm doing because my finger's no longer there. I now have a little trackpad a little mouse to connect to it. So that's connecting to a Lightning-based iPad, and I'm going to move over to my iPad Pro now. Right, so by the same token, where I had my USB hub over there, for my iPad Pro, I've got a little hub. This is called an Atom hub. There's a variety of them, but this one now has USB-C on one end. It's got a couple of USB ports on it. It's also got a camera kit, the little SD card reader. It's also got HDMI, so I can connect it to an external monitor. And it's also got Ethernet. So if I take this and I plug it into my iPad, right, so once again, I'm going to open up my control panel and connect my USB-C port. And now I'm going to take an Ethernet cable. You see it's got Ethernet in there? I'll plug my Ethernet in. If I now tap on Ethernet, you'll see I've got a gigabit Ethernet cable running on my device. So if I need to move large files quickly on a network, this is very easily done. That's the first thing. I can connect that USB mouse that I had before, which was connected to the Lightning port. I can connect this one as well. And if I go to my general settings, you'll see trackpad and mouse. And once again, I've got a mouse to connect. But I'm not going to do that because what I want to do is I want to connect a trackpad. So here we've got an Apple Magic Trackpad. You can use a Magic Mouse as well. I haven't tried third-party Bluetooth mice, but I suspect you can do them as well. So let's turn on Bluetooth. And I'm going to, you can see in the list down the right-hand side there, there's my AirPods, my pencil, Echo, and some headphones, but the trackpad isn't connected. So I'm going to switch it on. And if the demo gods are in my side, yep, there it is. Tap Magic Trackpad. And in a second or two, it'll be connected. And now, as you can see on my screen, I have a cursor. Now, this is not the default view. And we're going to go in and have a look at this in some sort of detail. So let's go back to General and have a look at Trackpad. So the first thing that one can do is you can adjust the tracking speed. So I can drag this to the left. And now I'm moving my hand really quickly, but it's only going a couple of centimeters. Equally, I can go all the way to the right-hand side, and now it just shoots across the screen. So obviously, you'll want to customize that to whatever suits your needs. I like it round about there, I think. Natural scrolling, some of us had to get used to this with earlier versions of Mac OS. Back in the day when you used to scroll down, when you had a mouse, the concept was that you were controlling the scroll bar down the side. So if you clicked on the scroll bar to make the scroll bar go down, the content used to go up, if you like, because you were going lower and lower down the screen. When they introduced the iPad, we were more interacting directly with the content. So if I take my finger and press up on the scroll bar on the left, I'm literally interacting. You can see the scroll bars going down on the right-hand side, but the content's going up. So that's what natural scrolling is. If I take the trackpad and I use 2 fingers to push it up, I'm pushing the content up and the scroll bar is coming down. If I switch off natural scrolling, it works the other way. If I pull down, the scroll bar comes down, the content goes up. I prefer that. You can also do, I don't know how many of you use trackpads on your laptops, or if you're one of those people who take a mouse with your laptop everywhere you go, but there are so many more gestures that are possible with a trackpad than with a mouse because you have a larger surface area. And one of the options is tap to click. I can't stand it because I'm so leaden, I'm so heavy-handed that I end up clicking and dragging stuff around where really all I meant to do was tap. So this will allow you to tap rather than click and hold. So let's go back to general and to our trackpad. And I'm going to switch this off. And then, of course, you've got your 2-finger secondary click. And basically what that means is that you can use your second finger to get, beg your pardon, to get things to happen, like getting contextual right memory, contextual menu down, like right-clicking on your mouse. So those are your basic settings on your trackpad. But there are quite a few more settings, and that's the ones I want to cover. If you go down to accessibility on your iPad, you will see a new item called pointer control. And in pointer control, we can do things like increase the contrast. You may not see this come through Zoom, but for people who have perhaps lower vision, it's something that will allow you to increase the contrast between your foreground and background. On my screen, you can see the little gray area on the center of the pointer is lighter. If I click add contrast, it goes darker. Automatically hide the pointer. This is generally on by default, and it's generally about 2 seconds. So what Apple have done is they haven't just recreated a cursor. They've made something that behaves slightly differently. And let's have a look and see what that means. So really, you've got to remember that the iPad is a touch-first device. And that's the intention, that it's mimicking your finger in many ways, but you don't have or I don't have a clumsy big finger that's obscuring what's on the screen below me. So the default is to have no color. It's just a little dot. I need to move the, too many mice here. I have to move the gallery view off to the side, otherwise I won't be able to, there we go, that's better. I won't be able to see the whole screen. If I go back to pointer control, the pointer is typically quite small. It's about that size, right? And if you leave it sit for 2, 3, 4 seconds, it'll fade away and disappear. You move it again, it'll come back. Your finger overrides. So if I was to tap anywhere on the screen, it immediately disappears. Let's go back to pointer control. The color is to help me differentiate, so I can make it red, but it doesn't make the dot red. The dot is still translucent. The actual pointer is translucent. But what it does do is it allows me to increase the thickness. So for demo purposes, this is really nice because it stands out quite nicely. We can also increase the size of the pointer, at which point, you see, once we get past a certain size, round about there, we end up getting this little dot in the middle. And this is where we get our real fine pointer control. So for people who kind of bemoan the fact that there isn't fine pointer control on an iPad, this is the solution to that one. I'm going to take this down a little bit. Now, one of the things that happens by default is something called pointer animations. And what that means is when you're moving the cursor around the screen, when I get close to a button, it actually morphs over and takes the shape of the button. And you'll see a little further on when we've got applications that have lots of buttons, this can be quite nice. Now, some people have a bit of problems adjusting to it, so they switch that off, and now it behaves more like a regular pointer. And if I scroll over the accessibility, again, it's very subtle, but the word gets a little bit larger and there's a slightly grayer background. But I quite like the pointer animations, and you'll see why when we get to the home screen, for example. Inertia, this allows the pointer to continue moving after you lift your finger, so I can flick it. Let's flick it very gently. And you can see it kind of slows down, a bit like the rubber banding when you get to the top of a scroll bar at the size. You can switch that off. And you can also adjust the scrolling speed. So if I'm scrolling down here and I'm flicking, it's going pretty quickly. But if I go super fast, Now it just takes me straight to the bottom, straight to the top with a single flick. So all of these are adjustable and are usable by yourself. So these are the settings. So how do we navigate around with the trackpad? If I don't want to go onto the home screen and use my fingers to lift things up, if I want to go home, I drag down to the bottom, and can you see how the pointer is now taking the shape of the bar at the bottom? Click there, and it takes me back to the home screen. Let's have a look and see what it looks like on the home screen. As I move my cursor over an icon, it becomes, for those of you with Apple TVs, you'd probably recognize it. The button becomes active. So it's almost like I'm touching the button, move it off, it goes off. So all of these become sort of almost tactile objects that I can manipulate around the screen. Okay, so we're at the home screen. What else can we do? If I want to get to the notification center, if I move the cursor up to the top to the date and time, I can move up there and it forms the shape of that. And let's go back to the top. We go over here to the right-hand side. That brings down the control center. Or if I choose to go beyond there, I just click and drag and go right beyond there, flick right up there. Come on. I prefer to just click on it. As you can see, if I go up there, there we go. It brings it down. So if I go to the top right, left-hand corner and flick up, it'll bring the notification center down. Here, we'll click back down. I've shown you already, if I right-click on an object, I can right-click on messages and I can make a new message, show all windows, or edit the home screen. If I want to get to the widgets on the left-hand side of the screen, I just use 2 fingers and drag to the right, and I can pull my widgets out. And one of the nice touches over here is if you go to the battery widget, you can see the power available on the trackpad. Right, so that's that on the side. So let's have a look and see what it looks like inside an application. Let me click on Pages. Right, and here we've got a document. This is a document that I'm working on at the moment. I should open it so I can see if I'm still on track. So inside a word processing document, and when I go into somewhere that allows me to edit text, the pointer changes to an I-beam. And this is pretty nice, particularly because the I-beam size changes depending on the size of the text. Now, I've just left it as red so that you can see quite clearly what I'm demonstrating. But if you don't have that highlighter, it's just a regular pointer that you move around the screen. So let's move up to the top of the screen, and you can see as we move over buttons, you've got this like snap inertia where it jumps to a button, and it also highlights things that I didn't actually realize were buttons. So if we click on adding a pointer, if we go over here, I can rename or move this. I actually didn't realize that this was a clickable object. I thought I had to go back to the documents window to rename things. So live and learn. Over here, we've got our format tools, we've got our add tools, we've got our collaboration tools, and all of our other tools over there. So remember I said if I wanted to get home, I just go to this bar and click it. But what if I want to bring the dock up and I don't want to use my hands to interact with the screen? Well, I just drag down and the dock comes up. And there we go, there we've got the dock. So now what if I want to do a split view and I want to bring one of these up? So I literally click it up. Well, let's do a slide over first. So now I've got a numbers document that should open in a second. Let's go down to our dock and bring out the calendar, and I'll drag that on top of there. And those of you who saw the multitasking thing will be very familiar with this. Let's drag this guy up here. So now I've got 3 applications in slide over. And if I click and drag up from here, I can see my 3 items over here. If I click on that, I bring that one to the front. If I want to push this off to the side, I just go to the side and flick to the right and it disappears. With it on the right-hand side, again, I just flick and it brings it back on. And I can move this off to the left, I can move it off to the right. So again, I haven't left the trackpad at all. What's another way of going home? I could click down there, but for those of you who are used to the trackpad on the mouse, I can take 4 fingers, swipe up, and that takes me straight home. Okay. Equally, if I'm back where I was there, and I take 4 fingers and I swipe up and hold, that puts me into multitasking view. So all the gestures that I'm used to are available. Let's go back to pages. Now, you know, on a Mac, if you've got multiple spaces, or if you swipe 4 fingers or 3 fingers on the screen, you can go left, left, right, right. So you can move through your applications with gestures that are very familiar to you if you've already used an iPad, or sorry, a trackpad. And I think finally, because we're coming to the end of times, because this is a really fast overview, if I go back to numbers, let's just take numbers out. Let's take the simple budget out. One of the nice features here is that if you just pinch to zoom in, so it was a 2-finger pinch, they've modified the cursor as well, so that if I go down to the bottom corner, you'll see I get this, drag this down or up. The cursor will change and let me know what is possible depending on the functionality that's available underneath the cursor at that point. So that's my fast overview. Let me stop the sharing. I think I'll also open it up to questions. If anybody wants to ask me a question while I quickly review my notes. Anyone have any questions? Anybody want to comment?
So listen, yeah, sorry, just to ask you that attachment that takes the attachment, does that come with the iPro, or and is it bought separate as well?
No, it's a third-party tool, and there's a variety of them because everybody has different needs. This one is pretty full-featured because it's got an SD card reader, 2 USB ports, an HDMI port, Ethernet port. Some people might not want Ethernet, so that would change the price.
Just the basic one, with for the HDMI or USB.
Yep, you can buy them. Look, if you just want an HDMI connector and you don't want to access Ethernet and USB, you're probably better off buying Apple's connector kit because that's.
I think that's the Apple connector kit. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
But if you have that, if you do have that already, and you want to connect a mouse, I would suggest trying just plugging in a USB mouse. You may have everything you need already.
Okay, thank you.
Sure. If you're going out to buy one, there are 2 USB camera adapters. One is a USB 3 and one is just old-fashioned USB, probably 2. I would encourage you to get the 3 because the 3 will let you connect an external hard drive. It'll let you connect more stuff than the older USB 2 one would allow you to connect.
Thank you.
Sure. Is this going to change the way any of you use your iPads?
Yeah, it looks very interesting. Looks very interesting. Thank you.
It's definitely changing the iPad. You know, that's been the biggest complaint is fine-grained control. And the pencil added a lot of that to it, but you're still touching the screen. And for people who like to use the keyboard, oh, and of course, I'd be remiss if I didn't mention that I think, Andrew, I'm not sure, I haven't been to the shop, but the new Magic keyboard that's coming out from Apple for the iPad Pros has a built-in trackpad as well. So you now have a device which you can just unhook from the keyboard and walk around and use it as if it was a regular iPad, or you can magnetically attach it to the stand and use it as a traditional computer.
So that'll take care of the trackpad and the pointer. We're able to use.
Absolutely.
Yeah, both at the same time. The one thing that stood out was a lot of people, especially with my clients who are using the iPads specifically, are not even aware that you can plug in an external hard drive, and that is a major improvement. You know, even people don't even have the Files app on the iPad, so that's an awesome thing that you showed there, Alan.
And of course, it could be a USB stick. It doesn't have to be a hard drive.
Yeah.
But any storage, just about any storage medium is now connectable.
Yeah.
Okay. Well,
sorry.
Well, you know, that is the fate. That is the fate of learning. You know, the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know.
Yep.
It's a slippery slope.
Sorry, can I ask you, Alan, is there a sort of very good revisionary one on the gestures, getting back to a lot of basics as well? Because I think very often, you know, as I found in your series, they're very often pretty basic things that we actually forget about with these devices, you know?
The best advice I can give to you, other than revisiting the videos, is
Yes.
go into the books, open up the books app on your iPad, and do a search for iPad user manual by
Yeah.
Apple.
Okay. No, sure.
It's free.
Yeah.
It's fantastic. It
Okay.
really is good. It is absolutely stunning. I learn something new every time I look inside it. So thanks once again, guys, for sharing your lunchtime with us. Really do appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing you tomorrow and all the future.
Many thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Take care, guys. Bye.
Bye.